Now, you guys probably remember this character from Arcane, right? A military leader whose influence is felt once she enters the picture, with scars on her face and a boy toy at her side. From her shadowy first appearance demonstrating ruthless proficiency to her cheekiness and harboring sympathy from her daughter, Ambessa was a background visitor to the dilemma of Season 1. But now, she is the most dangerous player in the game, and probably the most fascinating one of all. The one who knows how to play the system that is Conquest. Season 2 of Arcane has just started, and wow, what a start it was! While I begin to put together a longer form video discussing the impact on Arcane and video game adaptations in general, I'd like to briefly look at the importance of Noxus and how they add so much to the overall story. With Mel, and especially Ambessa, we see two sides of the same coin, all looking to use the show's MacGuffins to benefit their end goals. Politics play a huge factor in these significant plot points of Arcane, and seeing that Jinx just blew up any chance for peaceful negotiations, we are at a fork in the road. What will become of Arcane leading up to its next 6 episodes? And why is Ambessa going to direct what comes next? Well, let's do a deep dive into what we know so far about Mommy. Ambessa. The one thing that makes Ambessa stand out from the rest of the cast is her deep scars. Her muscular composition shows both experience and power, and her wardrobe and lifestyle are fully embroidered in warfare. Hell, the first thing she does in her intro is behead the leader of a defeated army in front of her own adopted daughter as a means to educate her. Ambessa is seen as a brutal tactician, hailing from a society described in the League of Legends game that is threatening to nations across the board when it comes to land grabs. It requires resources to function, and much of its nation is structured as an authoritarian regime, kind of like Sparta in our world. Red is the color they fly on high, and that's what they seek either on a map or on a battlefield. Now, if Ambessa was just some warmonger, I don't think it would make her a very compelling character. Instead, she goes by the mantra of her family, to be both a fox and a wolf, to be cunning and ferocious, united and strong, and family to better seize food for survival at any price.
If you want to last in this world, you must learn to be both the fox and the wolf.
And that's why it's very important for her not to be a major focus in Season 1. She doesn't try to climb the ladder like other characters. She takes her precious time in indulging herself in the wines, arts, and comfort to soothe the city council into a false sense of security. She goes at her first few days like any tourist, knowing the way of the land before she can make the necessary steps. One example can be seen in her interaction for the first time with Jace, fully naked and seemingly vulnerable. It's a simple way of saying that she has nothing to hide, and that makes the young counselor very uncomfortable. Jace is a novice in the affairs of the state, and has only been able to get this far through the teachings of Mel, who we'll get into in just a few minutes because she does play an integral role in Arcane. Now back to the scene in play, Ambessa gets up from her position to make herself bigger than Jace. The boy shrinks because he's very uncomfortable seeing his girlfriend's mom showing it all off and not caring who's peeping. Now Jace is the one at her mercy, but she only needs to give him a brief warning that she will get her way, whether by his permission or another.
But if you don't accept certain realities, I fear you'll end up like General Parlek, slaughtered with your eyes closed.
This is a very good illustration of how experience can outplay those who are green in the game. She knows how to produce adequate responses to get her way. Make a man feel confined in his supposed superiority, and he crawls back to being a boy. The woman has dunked on his pride. Gee, and I thought this guy was better at doing the slant dunks. In terms of prowess, Ambessa has a master's in psychological warfare. But then comes the meaning behind her scars, because they are pretty much the key to getting to the root cause of her being this way. And that's why we need Mel up here, since she holds the secrets to Ambessa's Achilles heel. I do believe that without Mel as a character, we wouldn't have a better understanding of Ambessa as our nemesis, even if they adopt their family motto in their own unique ways. Mel is not like her mother. For one, she was cast aside to the aristocratic society of Piltover because of her indifference to conquest. and thus became a pragmatic trading socialite. She knows more about high society endgames than her mother, and understands how to roll her dice when the atmosphere is to her liking.
Heimerdinger will recognize the potential.
He already does. It scares them all.
What about you?
I recognize that any worthwhile venture involves risk.
This doesn't make her so different from her mother, and while she doesn't have much room in her heart to sympathize with the actions Ambessa does, she still does love her family. She hasn't outright disowned her origins, nor even the last name, considering it a bargaining chip for negotiations. Moreover, she wants to be an innovator and gain support from Piltover through a very different approach. However, unlike Ambessa, she is flexible, and is hesitant to make reckless actions that would cost lives, even if it was to save thousands. And we see that with Jace, the golden boy of Piltover who saw Hextech through despite being shunned by the privilege for its dangerous potential. She was the deciding factor in getting this new piece of tech into production, and it was her instructions that allowed for fresh minds to take root in the council seats.
There are those who covet your power over the wealth the Hex Gates afford, and would take any opportunity to seize it from you.
Of course, that meant the end of the illustrious intellectual Heimerdinger's tenure, but hey, out with the old and in with the new. She does not want war, she wants a routine peace. But that's also made very complicated with a faction of citizens disrespected and disenfranchised seeking to dismantle the status quo. Enter from stage right, Mommy Dearest, I mean Ambessa, who Mel knows is only here for the potential of Hextech as a weapon.
I sponsored Hextech to protect the city, not burn it to the ground.
It's not conjecture. It's a fact. Weapons can't be unmade, and they are always used.
Mel does not want that, and the only reason Ambessa is present comes back to family. When Ambessa comes off her high-tech balloon, she informs Mel of her brother's passing, done in by a miscalculation by his mother, and knowing her, she intends to seek recompense. Her pride in tatters and her finances in decay, she is a woman desperate to hold onto a position of authority, and despite her love for connected blood, she cares more about being the one in charge.
I can't believe you'd start a war just to cover your ass.
I would set the world ablaze to protect our family.
That is the reasoning behind many of Ambessa's actions. She seemingly values familial bonds and protection, though how she goes about it makes Mel ashamed and quite justifiably pissed off. The Fox and the Wolf go head to head, but thankfully Mel can strive off much of Ambessa's influence for a time. But once that Jinx ultimate hits the council at the worst possible moment, Mel couldn't hold on to those reins properly. And now we have an even bigger crisis. And if we go by League of Legends vernacular, Ambessa's very well fed and is ready to start roaming. The show Arcane juggles many themes in its narrative. How ambition can be both influential and dangerous, the value of familial ties and what makes a family to begin with, and how to find a balance between the new and old. Now, Arcane isn't unique in its storytelling. Hell, League of Legends started as just a simple addictive video game that just so happens to be the source of why everyone who plays it is a sociopath at heart. Yet what makes this League of Legends property thrive was emotional depth, and when to play on character flaws to better make the story more memorable. Emotions like happiness, fear, grief can help direct a person to how they'll respond to their surroundings. Emotion pushes folks to do the unthinkable, and as such, Ambessa is a master when it comes to this, and why this part of Arcane is so crucial. The pivotal moments of Arcane that takes place happen to steer the plot along to where it will naturally go. The death of Vi's family leads to her abandoning Powder, or the death of Silco ending the first season with that impactful shark bomb. The latter proved very important to Ambessa in getting closer to her goals, as it was this emotional outburst that secured her role as a visor, and pretty much a second in command of Piltover's entire military operations. But how does Ambessa do this? Well, in comes that experience again. Sala was crippled in the attack and is deeply hurt by the tragedy, to which Ambessa comes to comfort him. From there, she orchestrates an elaborate false flag operation, using an influential Zonites who lost her child during the episode where Jason and Vi halted a Shimmer operation to interrupt and terrorize a memorial service for the fallen counselors. And finally, with the death of Caitlyn's mother, she is very much vulnerable to any outside influence, friendly or otherwise. So when the operation to take Jinx out goes astray and needs a prestigious figure to enact martial law, Ambessa chooses Caitlyn, and with bravado, she accepts.
Time to end this. You've given Zorn opportunity after opportunity to repair their wrongs. Half your council is dead. Your memorial is made a massacre. Wrath must be met with wrath.
This doesn't come out of nowhere, as this was brought up in conversation with Salo, the guy who mentions the Kierman family to Ambessa, to which she figures out how to play the new head of the family in her favor. And without Mel around due to circumstances, Ambessa has full control of Piltover, and without the benefit of hindsight, we really don't know how many will perish just for Ambessa to get exactly what she wants. The fox is back in his den, and the wolf is on the hunt. Though, pretty ironic that there's another wolf ready to be unleashed, so we'll just leave that for now. Come on, I'm sure this thing is not going to be a major factor at all. No siree! Oh god, there's gonna be so much death. Ambessa, at least from what we can gather, helps propel the theme of ambition clouding judgment. Unlike characters who've only seen Hextech as tools to better mankind, Ambessa is the darker side of humanity's lust for finding new ways to secure control. Her method of attaining necessary objects to be used for conquest is effective in an environment wrought with disorganized madness. When everyone's emotions are heightened, a pro will use it against you. And it makes sense that the one who will use it is a military general. We've already seen this happen before with Silco and Jinx's relationship, so it's not a theme that just so happens to manifest from Ambessa's, well, cut muscles. Okay, Arcane likes to dabble in the after effects of great progress and how individuals can misuse it for the betterment of the few. We could have had control, like what Jace is fighting with as we speak. We could have had innovation, like what Heimer or Echo are currently trying to shelter. We could have had a resolution, like with Jinx and Vi's situation. Yet, under the thumb of a totalitarian matriarch, these clemencies are not fruitful enough to secure order. As Ambessa once put it, a wolf does not need mercy. So, with all that said, where do we go from here? Well, we'll see how things play out when the next set of episodes come out, but tell me what you guys think about Ambessa so far, and if you'd like to see a couple more videos like this in the future. Subscribe if you enjoy my content, and if you'd like to see videos earlier, you can subscribe to my Patreon. It's your Brahman, signing off for now.